Good. Well, good afternoon, and thank you for attending the rise of foreign cybersecurity threats associated with smartphones, tablet PCs, connected products and PCs supported by the Android OS, Apple iOS, and Microsoft Windows OS. I will also be addressing cybersecurity threats posed by great power competition from adversarial countries such as Russia and China, and how that's relevant to application developers who are from Russia and China that are distributing their apps through Google Play, Apple App Store, and Microsoft App Store. My name is Rex Lee, and I'm a cybersecurity and privacy advisor and a technology journalist. I have over 35 years of tech and telecom industry experience at an executive and VP level. I'm the founder of RML Business Consulting and My Smart Privacy. I'm also an application developer. One of my clients is Carnegie Technologies, and I've been associated with them for about 30 years, and they're an app and platform developer. I'm a former advisor for the Department of Homeland Security, the National Security Agency, and the House and Senate Judiciary Committees regarding surveillance and data mining business practices employed by tech giants such as Google, Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Facebook, Tencent, Baidu, and Prisma Labs from several other companies are from Russia and China. I'm also a public speaker. I mainly speak at conferences centered on the defense industry and critical infrastructure, as well as cybersecurity. Again, I'm a tech journalist. I've written articles for the Epic Times, Wireless Messaging News, Money Masters, and Mission Critical Communications magazine. You ever get the feeling that you're being spied on? I get that feeling every time I touch my smartphone, tablet, PC, connected product. Also when I ride in a connected vehicle or watch a smart TV. There's a reason for this, and it's tied to surveillance capitalism, which I like to call the Silicon Valley matrix. Before we get into the presentation, I'd like to address personal and professional privacy. A lot of people tell me today that privacy doesn't matter in today's connected world. I happen to disagree. For example, regarding your home and office phone and PC, would you allow 15 or more multinational companies, including companies from China and Russia, plus business competitors, to monitor, track, and data mine all of your activity, including content associated with your use of your home and office phone and PC? Regarding your personal and professional activities, would you allow 15 or more multinational companies, including companies from China and Russia, plus potential business competitors, to conduct surveillance on your personal and business activities 24/7, 365 days a year? Most people would answer no to these questions. However, when you use your smartphone personally and professionally, you are in fact enabling over 15 multinational companies, including companies from Russia and China, plus potential business competitors, to monitor, track, and data mine all of your activities associated with the use of this device 24/7, 365 days a year. Why is this significant? Well, the reason this is significant is to understand what a smartphone is. A smartphone is an integrated cellular phone and PC that is supported by protected telecom infrastructure regulated by the FCC. This means that a smartphone is no less significant than your home or office phone and PC. As a matter of fact, we're displacing the use of our home and office phone and PC with our smartphones and our tablet PCs in this day and age. Smartphones are not private or secure forms of telecommunications and mobile computing, according to T-Mobile and Verizon. In 2015, I filed a formal FCC consumer complaint against T-Mobile in regards to surveillance and data mining business practices. And this is what T-Mobile had to say. We too remember a time before smartphones when it was reasonable to conclude that when you activated service with T-Mobile, that only T-Mobile would have access to our personal information. However, with the Samsung Galaxy Note, the iPhone, and many other devices, There are indeed a variety of parties that may collect and use information. That's tied to a formal FCC consumer complaint that I filed in 2015, and it's public record under FCC ticket number 423849. What you're going to see today is 6 years worth of research on smartphones, tablet PCs, and the pre-installed apps and third-party apps that support smartphones and tablet PCs, as well as the operating systems. So in 2018, I got tired of researching all of the apps that support these products and the operating systems and so forth. I do work in the defense industry and I do work in critical infrastructure, so I went to Verizon's government sales division and I simply asked Verizon, can you sell me a private and secure smartphone, tablet PC, or even a flip phone? At first, Verizon said, no problem, we can sell you one, we have solutions. Over a 3-month period, I vetted every solution that Verizon had sent to me and proved they could not sell me a private or secure smartphone. After 3 months of vetting their products and sending my research to Verizon, Verizon agreed with me. On July 2nd, 2018, Verizon sent this response back to my request. We have reviewed your request at the highest levels of our organization and have confirmed that the only solutions to make a phone private and secure are available through third parties, not directly from Verizon. Additionally, Verizon is not equipped to address pre-installed solutions or applications on any device, which is at the center point of what I'm going to talk about today, which are pre-installed applications and other pre-installed content. Aside from the fact that smartphones and tablet PCs and connected products are not private or secure, they're also supported by addictive and harmful technology, according to former executives and product designers for Facebook and Google. Sean Parker, the co-founder of Facebook, had this to say during an Axios interview in 2017. It's a social validation feedback loop, exactly the kind of thing a hacker like myself would come up with, because you're exploiting the vulnerability in human psychology. God only knows what it's doing to our children's brains. The inventors, creators, it's me, it's Mark Zuckerberg, it's Kevin Systrom of Instagram, it's all of these people understood this consciously, and we did it anyways. And Tristan Harris, the former lead product designer for Google, had this to say during a TED Talk in a 60 Minutes segment. The average person checks their smartphone 150 times a day. Why do we do this? Are we making 150 conscious choices? One major reason why is the #1 psychological ingredient in slot machines, intermittent variable rewards. So what he's explaining is the fact that these app and platform developers design these to be addictive. Why do they design them to be addictive? So that we're looking at them almost 24 hours a day, so that they can exploit the personal and professional information that we generate from these devices for financial gain. If you're wondering what intermittent variable rewards are, those are things like thumbs up or balloons and confetti and or emojis and things that play on people's need or pride or need for social acceptance when using these products. These are the same things that slot machine developers do to addict gamblers. So one thing that you have to understand is that connected products in general, including smartphones, are designed for consumerism. This all started way back with the first connected iPod, when Apple realized that they could monitor the use of an iPod user who was listening to music so that they could understand their personal preferences, and they're hooked up to iTunes and they could sell them more music. That may not have been so much of an invasion of privacy, and may have been somewhat useful to the user because you're getting music suggested to you based on your personal preferences. However, when you take that same technology and you proliferate it to a smartphone, you're able to now monitor and track people by their phone and their PC, and you can understand every single thing there is about their life, including having the ability to take control of the camera and microphone to record users without their consent. So these intrusive apps support a number of tech and telecom products such as smartphones, tablet PCs, light IoT devices, or what I call consumer IoT devices, and industrial IoT devices that are used within critical infrastructure. Consumer products that are supported by these intrusive apps and platforms include TVs, appliances, automobiles, wearable technology. In-building climate control systems and security systems are also supported by these intrusive apps. So what's going on here? Why are they doing this? Well, they're doing this for one reason only, and that's because all of these application and OS developers have adopted a surveillance capitalism business model. And what that means is all app-driven tech and telecom products are supported by predatory surveillance and data mining business practices that are rooted in surveillance capitalism. So the reason they're doing this is because our personal and professional information, or what I like to call our personal and professional digital DNA, is the most valuable resource on Earth. Basically what tech and telecom giants have done is have turned tech and telecom product users into uncompensated information producers, meaning that every time we touch one of these devices, or every time we utilize this device to take a picture or take this device with us on a personal or professional activity, we produce the valuable oil in the form of personal and professional digital DNA that they reach into and collect and then exploit for financial gain at the expense of our privacy, our cybersecurity, our civil liberties, and our safety. And I'll go into that in a minute. A lot of people who may not care about privacy probably should care about being exploited for financial gain at the expense of privacy. So why is this significant? Well, today we utilize our smartphones, our tablet PCs, and other connected products in confidential and protected environments. I happen to believe that the use of smartphones in certain environments is actually illegal. What is a confidential and protected environment? Well, it's an environment such as the defense industry, government, critical infrastructure, and enterprise business. A confidential and protected environment is governed by confidentiality agreements that we sign with our employers, non-disclosure agreements that we execute between us, our companies, and our vendors, plus other developers, industry and federal cybersecurity standards, and federal information processing standards, plus confidentiality laws that govern medical information, client-attorney privilege, and classified information. In any one of these examples that I've given you, nowhere is there an exception made for our technology providers such as Google, Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Facebook, or other companies to be able to collect information while using these products within these environments. I'll give you an example. When a doctor reads HIPAA-protected medical information on their smartphone, but their smartphones contain apps and other content that can collect that information off that device, that doctor's in violation of HIPAA. When an attorney has a text conversation with a client on their smartphone, but their smartphone has apps that can collect their text messages, that attorney is in violation of client-attorney privilege. Same thing with a government employee who has a classified rating, and they're utilizing the product, utilizing these products and communicating regarding classified information. Not only is a user in violation of the law, but the companies that are collecting that information could be in violation of the law as well. Nobody's thinking about these types of environments when they look at their smartphones. Everybody's thinking of them in more of a consumerism thought process. So to understand why I believe it's illegal to use these products in certain environments, let's look at exactly what surveillance capitalism is. Surveillance capitalism is simply the ability, simply the fact that the three predominant OS developers, Google, the developer of the Android OS, Apple, the developer of Apple iOS, and Microsoft, the developer of Windows, Microsoft, the developer of Windows 8 and 10, have found a way to monetize the operating system user. A lot of people believe that it's the platforms that have monetized their user, but the conduit to the user is through the operating system. So whenever I purchase a product such as a smartphone or a tablet PC that's supported by any of these operating systems, these companies then sell access to the OS product user to companies such as Amazon, Alibaba, which is a Chinese company, Facebook, Prisma Labs, which is a Russian company, JD.com, Twitter, Tencent, and Baidu. All of these companies develop apps and content that support these technologies. They both develop pre-installed content and apps, as well as third-party content and apps that are distributed through Google Play, the Apple App Store, and Microsoft App Store. So why is this significant? Again, the user, when the user or you see apps, you see necessity, convenience, and entertainment. When I see apps, I see legal malware that is supported by exploited terms of use. So when you click on I agree, you're agreeing to two sets of terms of use. One that's very transparent to you in the form of online terms of use that include terms and conditions, privacy policies, and end user licensing agreements. What's unbeknown to you is you're also agreeing to unpublished terms of use that are pre-installed into the device in the form of application permission statements, application product warnings, and interactive application permission command strings that enable two or more companies to surveil a person through their smartphone through a single intrusive app. When you click on I agree, you're accepting over 3,000 pages of complicated legalese that's written in a torturous manner to get you to simply click on the terms of use so that you can participate without having to read all of the legalese that's associated with the terms of use. What's important is if you work in a confidential and protected environment, the terms of use do not indemnify the person against harm. Such was the case that Jennifer Lawrence found out the hard way, the actress, when her iCloud was hacked, and she had no legal recourse to sue Apple because that's what she agreed to. Why is that significant in a confidential and protected environment? Simply because of this. If a DEA agent utilizes their smartphone for professional purposes and they put into their contact address book their informants, their family members, their colleagues, and that address book is collected by an app developer, and that address book is compromised and ends up in the hands of the cartel, and the cartel ends up killing an informant or kidnapping a family member or harming the DEA agent in any way, the DEA agent or the DEA do not have any legal recourse to sue the app developers or the OS developers for the negligent use of that information. So that's very important. Pending the operating system, there are more than 300 pre-installed apps and devices today. This means that those apps are developed by 15 or more multinational companies, including companies from China. So that means that when you activate this device pending the operating system at a Verizon store or a Sprint or a T-Mobile store, when you walk out of that, or AT&T, when you walk out of that store, you're already being simultaneously monitored, tracked, and data mined by over 15 multinational companies, including companies from China that can collect pretty much everything off of the device that you're doing. The other issue that I ran into when I did my research on smartphones and the terms of use that support them are contradictory terms of use. This is one example of that. When I go on to Google's website and I look at their terms of use regarding personal information, their terms of use online tell me that my identifiable personal information is not sold to third parties. However, when I read the apps that support, when I read the application legalese, and that's a picture of a pre-installed application permission statement from a Samsung Galaxy Note phone, when I read the Google legalese that supports these apps, it tells me a much different picture. For instance, this application permission statement states this: allows apps to read personal profile information stored on your device, such as your name and contact information. This means that apps can identify you and may send your profile information to others. I had sent this finding to Google, Samsung, and T-Mobile, asking them for an explanation. Am I identified or am I not identified? They refused to answer my questions, even though I'm the paying customer. So we hear these executives from Google, such as Sundar Pichai or Mark Zuckerberg from Facebook, who says, oh, we don't sell information that identifies our users. That's a half-truth. You have to look at the application legalese that supports the apps. Again, this is another example of how you're sold access to companies that develop intrusive apps. So these application permission statements support a wide array of products, such as Apple products. They support Microsoft, PC supported by Windows 8 and 10. They also support, these hidden application permission statements support products like Sony 4K TVs that are supported by the Android OS. That's a picture of a 4K TV that I pulled these application permissions up on. You have to know how to do that. It's very difficult if you've never done it before to find the pre-installed permissions, not the permissions from third-party apps that you download, but the ones that are pre-installed onto the device. Again, BlackBerry as well. BlackBerry adopted the Android OS over 2 years ago, so BlackBerry devices are not private or secure either. There are application product warnings that are hidden in the devices that are actually shocking. I came across this application permission warning that actually warns the user to censor their communications. Now, if you're going to warn the user to censor their communications, shouldn't you publish that online? Here's what Google has to say when you utilize their apps. Allows the app to access and sync social updates from you and your friends. Be careful when sharing information. This allows the app to read communications between you and your friends on social networks regardless of confidentiality. There's two big issues here going on. First of all, if you're communicating with people on LinkedIn, why is Google given the access to collect that messaging? They have nothing to do with the development of LinkedIn and or your Twitter account or other social media accounts. They're not stating that they only read your social media messages on one platform. They're reading it on multiple platforms. Again, these are other examples of hidden application permissions that you'll find in the devices. Access your car speed. How do they do that? They have the ability to gain control of the accelerometer so they can see your driving habits. All of these are examples of application permissions that are hidden in the products that you own today. Allows this application to access your email attachments. It doesn't matter. Whatever you do on these devices, these companies are enabled to collect that information. Contact information, calendar information. I'll go into a few details on that in a minute. The other thing that happens when you click on I agree is you're giving the OS and app developers the ability to take full remote control over your devices. This means that they can come in and control biometric authentication and collect biometric information. They can compromise your subscriber identity module or your SIM card and collect information from your SIM card. They have the ability to locate you through near-field communication. So if you have your location turned off on this device and you go shopping somewhere and you walk by a register with Google or Apple Pay, the device will ping that NFC tag and it'll tell Google and Apple exactly where you're at, whether you buy something or not. Again, they can come in and connect through Bluetooth technology as well as cellular. They can track your location by cellular tower. Wi-Fi, the device can connect to Wi-Fi without your confirmation or notice to import and export information. So if you're not on the 4 or 5G network, the device can still import and export information to these companies through Wi-Fi. They can also collect information from your SD card, take control of the global positioning sensor so that they can track your location. And then the other thing that people don't realize is that they can actually collect information through USB. So anything that the power synchronization cable plugs into, they can collect information from that connected source. So the apps are designed to reach beyond the host device and collect personal and professional information from other connected sources. And again, the apps can take control of environmental sensors such as the accelerometer, so they know when you're sitting, standing, walking, or in motion in any way, riding a bike and so forth. So the apps can also take full control of the hardware on the device, the cameras and microphones. A lot of people ask me, hey Rex, can they really turn my microphone and camera on without my consent? I say, don't ask me. All you have to do is find your app permissions and read it yourself. I'll read you the microphone app permission from a Samsung Galaxy Note 8. The app permission says this: allows the app to record audio with the microphone. This permission allows the app to record audio at any time without your confirmation. It also states that for the camera. If you lock your device with a password and think your device is safe from pre-installed surveillance technology, it's not. The lock screen app permission says this: allows the app to disable the key lock and any associated password security on the device so that they can get past your password security. There's also permissions that support key logging and touchscreen activity. So if you're using encryption, that's not going to protect you from the pre-installed technology providers. That will only protect you from the third-party apps that you download and other third parties that may be trying to get that information. So it will only be encrypted when you send it, but as you're typing that information in, those raw keystrokes and or touchscreen taps and touches and swipes are all being recorded. So the other thing that's going on here is indiscriminate simultaneous surveillance and data mining, which means that multiple companies are doing this. Most people think it's only Google or Amazon or Facebook collecting my information. They don't realize that it's multiple companies. Just from pre-installed apps alone, there could be as many as 15 or more companies. When you download third-party apps, some people may have as many as 30, 40, or 50 or more companies from around the world that are surveilling and data mining everything they're doing with this smartphone. Now, if we lived in a shopping mall 24 hours a day, that might not be a big deal. But when you work in the defense industry or you work within critical infrastructure or the government or within enterprise business, you're bleeding that information to multiple companies, including companies from Russia and China. The average person today is surrounded by 2 or more active cameras and microphones almost 24 hours a day that are associated or support products such as smartphones, tablet PCs, connected products, TVs, such as the TV remotes. A lot of people don't realize this today. When you buy a smart TV, you won't find the microphone on the TV. It's usually in the remote, as well as cable services put the mic in the remotes as well. Your cars all have microphones in there. You already have a microphone on you and an active camera and microphone on you when you have this device everywhere you go. For instance, other users in this room right now, there are multiple active cameras and microphones that are on right now, and there are multiple companies from all over the world, including Russia and China, that are listening to our very conversation right now. So the other issue that you have to understand is that these companies are collecting 95% of the personal and professional information that these companies are collecting from us has nothing to do with the physical or actual use of their apps or platforms, because they're granted indiscriminate surveillance and data mining of the user from Google, Apple, and Microsoft, meaning that I do not have to be on, for instance, with Facebook, I don't have to be on the Facebook platform using my Facebook account, which I don't have one, but if I had one, I don't have to be on the platform using the Facebook platform to be surveilled and data mined by Facebook. If I connect to Facebook through the Facebook app, that application is granted over 62 permissions, and what you're seeing here are actual photographs of the permissions that Google, Apple, and Microsoft grant to Facebook, meaning that Facebook can access my camera and microphone without my consent. They can collect my contacts, my text messages, my calendar events. They're enabled to also collect phone logs, emails, and all of this information, whether I'm on the Facebook platform or not. If I unsubscribe to Facebook, but I do not disable the Facebook app on my smartphone, my tablet PC, or even my TV or whatever device that I connect to Facebook on, And I think that Facebook can no longer surveil me. That's untrue. As long as those apps are active on any device, Facebook can still surveil you. It's the same thing with Amazon products. If I were to if I owned an Amazon Echo, and I said, this is a little too creepy to have them listening to all my conversations in my house, and I throw that Echo into a can and fill the can with cement and drop it off in the center of the Gulf of Mexico and think that Amazon can't still surveil me, I would be wrong as long as I didn't disable the Alexa app that supports the device. So what the Alexa voice automated platform and app are granted are the same permissions that Facebook was granted, which pretty much means that they're collecting everything off of your smartphone, your tablet, PC. They also can commandeer the microphone and camera on this device, so they don't even need the Echo device to record your conversations because you're granting them that permission, which means that, again, Amazon doesn't even need the Echo device as long as the app is active to listen to your conversations. One thing that I've noticed when I did the app analysis on the Alexa app was the fact that Facebook wasn't granted this permission, but for some reason, Google, Apple, and Microsoft are granting Amazon the ability to bypass your password security, and I found that surprising. A lot of people today are utilizing DNA services like 23andMe and Ancestry, and they're sending their DNA to these companies. That's a personal choice, but you have to read the terms of use. They can monetize that information and sell it. We're starting to see instances where the DNA has been given to law enforcement and they're arresting people, either family members and or a criminal who may utilize this service. That person ends up getting caught. That's a good use for it, but it's also a violation of civil liberties as well because these are state actors. Now, what's unbeknown to the person who sends their DNA to these companies is when they download that app to see where they're from, they're given, these apps are given the same permissions as Facebook and Amazon. And so these DNA companies are then enabled to collect your digital DNA and then monetize that as well. Plus they can commandeer your camera and microphone and conduct audio and video surveillance on you as well. So exactly how much information are they collecting on you? I analyze that as well. So when I initially did a pre-installed app in terms of use analysis on this Samsung Galaxy Note smartphone back in 2014, and I thought, oh, I should be able to run through this in a week or two. It took me 4 months to do the analysis. Basically, it took me 4 months to read my cellular phone contract. And what I found was extremely surprising. First of all, there are 3 buckets of information that they're collecting from us. The first bucket is surveillance data, which includes location data, sensitive user data, and what I call multi-source data mining information, which means that the apps are reaching beyond the device to collect information from connected sources. So I look at those 3 buckets. So let's look at surveillance data and see how much information they're collecting from us that include location data, biometric data, health and fitness data, and the audio and video recordings of our activities. The first bucket of information is location data tied to GPS. They're also collecting geofence data, and a lot of people don't realize this, but they used to only track us to our endpoints, but today they are time-stamping when we enter specific locations and time-stamping when we're leaving specific locations, very much how a court puts an ankle bracelet on somebody to see where they're going. They're also using near-field communications in terms of location data. They use near-field communications for things like Apple Pay, Google Pay, but also NFC tags are being put into smart street lights. So if I go by a smart street light, it'll ping my phone and tell them where I'm at. So everywhere you see these new smart street lights and they say it's for public safety, they're also collecting data from our smartphones, and believe me, they will be monetizing that information as well. So NFC tags are going to be all around us. They're at gas pumps as well. So you're going to see the proliferation of NFC tags everywhere. Again, they can collect location data from your Wi-Fi access point. They can also collect audio and video files from the audio and video recordings of our activities, plus our photos, our music, our books, movies, and general files, and so on. They also collect motion data. That's done again through the accelerometer. They know they can collect sedentary data when you're sitting or sleeping. They can collect data when you're walking, running, cycling, or in an automobile, or even on a plane, as long as you have this device with you. They can collect your health and fitness data, heart rate, blood pressure, and so on. So telemedicine, when you do telemedicine over this device, you're exposing your confidential medical information to multiple companies. Biometric data includes facial recognition data, fingerprint data, and voice print data. They can identify you through your voice print on this device. So even if I go into a meeting and I don't have this device with me, but I sit in a meeting and other people have their smartphones in there, they can actually listen to my voice print and pretty much match it up with me and know that I'm in that meeting even though I don't have my smartphone with me. Retina, when they take your facial recognition data, now they're collecting retina data with that. And if you participate and give physical DNA, you're giving that to tech companies as well. Again, vehicle telematics, auto speed, driving habits, and so on. The next bucket of information is sensitive user data, which includes your identity, your email attachments, including PDFs, photos, Word docs, Excel docs, and so on. Messaging, text, instant messaging, social media, and so on. Contact data, that's your electronic address book, that's your personal and professional contacts. Your calendar data, including personal and professional calendar associated with your job, which includes events and attachments. So if you send a calendar event with an attachment, that information is going to get collected as well. Account, any account that you set up on this device, which includes internet accounts, social media accounts, banking account, business and medical, and so on. Any account you set up on this device, they can collect information from those apps to see what your usage is. Key logging, again, you're giving up the right to be able to be key logged on these devices as well. Logs, phone logs, messaging logs, app usage logs, anything that can be logged will be collected off of these devices. So let's look at this bucket. I was totally astounded when I came across the fact that the devices, that the apps and content can actually reach beyond the host device to collect information from other connected products. I happen to think all of this is illegal, but I especially think this should be illegal as anything. Anything that can sync or connect to this device by cable, the apps can reach beyond this device to collect information from those connected sources, which include PCs, TVs, automated assistants, anything that can sync and connect to these devices, the apps can reach beyond the devices. It's unbelievable. I don't have enough time to go into this line by line, but this is a flow chart a matrix that I created when I was doing my research that shows all the sensors that the device can that the apps can commandeer, as well as the hardware like the microphone and the camera, as well as all of the location data and the sensitive user data that can be collected off of the devices. It's everything that you're doing on the devices. So who's collecting this information? Let's look at who's collecting it. It's the top internet companies in the world. Now people wonder, why are there only a handful of companies that control access to the internet and also dominate the online marketplace? When you can have your apps pre-installed into these devices like Facebook apps and Amazon apps, and you can't uninstall those, you're going to have a huge advantage over your competitors simply by the fact that your apps are on billions of devices around the world. So if you want to come up with a competitive social media platform and you think you're going to compete against Facebook, you can't do it, because your app is going to get shoved into the app stores with millions of other apps, and people are going to be sold these products, and they're going to go straight to the apps that are pre-installed on these devices. So let's look at the top 10 companies. 6 of them are from the US and 4 are from China in the top 10. In the top 6, 3 of the companies are from the US and 3 from China. The number 1 internet company is Amazon. They're almost twice as big as Google as an internet company. Google's second. JD.com, a lot of people have asked me, who's JD.com? They're a Chinese company, but their number 1 investor is Walmart. Alibaba is from China. Facebook, Tencent is from China. Tencent is in multiple industries, and I'll go into that in a minute. Netflix, Bookings, Baidu, and eBay round out the top 10. So Apple and Microsoft would be on this list, but they don't count themselves as an internet company. So let's look at great power competition from China and Russia. Why is that significant? When you allow any company to surveil you on your home and office phone and PC or a smartphone, which that's exactly what this is, that is a privacy and cybersecurity threat in on itself. But when you're allowing companies from China and Russia and other adversarial players to develop apps that can surveil and data mine the user, that is a cybersecurity threat that needs to be addressed at the C-suite level and the board level for companies. At Black Ops Partners, we address those threats. However, we're not the only ones addressing these threats. General Joseph F. Dunford had this to say about cybersecurity threats associated with great power competition at the Atlantic Conference this year and a CNN interview. Russia and China are competitors to the United States, and both nations are looking to overturn the current rules-based international order. Both are trying to assert greater influence on the world stage. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo at CERAWeek 2019 in Houston in a CBS interview also addressed cybersecurity threats associated with great power competition from Russia and China, and basically centered on the fact that these companies and countries are in the business of espionage to steal billions of dollars worth of American intellectual property as well. Casey Fleming, the CEO of Black Ops Partners, had this to say in an interview: "A change to the world order is underway. The ground has shifted due to threats of great power competition that include unprecedented risk and asymmetrical warfare." So let's take a look at what asymmetrical warfare is and why its relevance and what its relevance is to great power competition. Asymmetrical warfare means this, that the modern day battlefield is everywhere. It's no longer fought between two mechanized armies on a specific battlefield. So this means that elected officials, CEOs, board members of companies, employees, and civilians that include adults, teens, and children are all targets. And whatever information can be gained off of those people would be very valuable and give your business an advantage in the marketplace, or give your country valuable intel as well. So the other thing that, aside from the fact that apps are supported by intrusive technology and addictive and harmful technology, a lot of people don't realize this. I just wrote an article for Mission Critical Communications magazine that was published in August, and in the article I cite a malware attack example on a Saudi oil refinery, which was the very oil refinery that was had the drone attack. The Saudi oil refinery that was attacked by drones a couple of months ago. So I had cited that an example of a malware called Intrusive that morphed from DDoS attack malware that was launched through the Microsoft operating system on that oil refinery a year ago. It failed, but they caught it nonetheless. So a lot of people don't realize this, but apps can launch attacks on networks. Now, you're not going to see any of these news stories on CBS, ABC, or NBC, or CNN, or Fox, anywhere, because these news stories involve their biggest advertisers. For instance, in 2017, Google removed over 300 Android apps that could hijack the phone and launch DDoS attacks from the phone. Apple's security platform, their mobile device management platform, was also compromised by intrusive apps that were leaking information to Chinese companies. As well as Apple iOS apps and Android apps are subject to man-in-the-middle attacks. This capability is absolutely frightening in on itself. So what's going on today? Well, today, this is a fact. Google, Apple, and Microsoft are distributing Chinese and Russian surveillance and data mining technology via Google Play the Apple App Store, and Microsoft App Store. So what you're seeing here is a graphic that shows each company's association with China and or Russia, and below are actual logos of popular apps that are on billions of smartphones around the world. I'll use WeChat as an example. If you're over 30, you're still using WhatsApp. If you're under 30, you're using WeChat. Same thing is happening with Facebook. If you're over 30, you're using Facebook, but if you're under 30, you're moving to TikTok. And if you've heard about TikTok, that's a social media platform developed by a Chinese app and platform developer. So for instance, WeChat is the #1 downloaded app in the world today with over 1 billion downloads. As a matter of fact, the Prime Minister of Canada, Trudeau, was actually promoting the fact that he was using WeChat. Also, Rush Limbaugh on his show was promoting the fact that he got away from Facebook and was using WeChat, and I was laughing about it because I was like, hey, you're using Chinese surveillance technology on your phone now. At least Facebook had your information before, but now you're giving it to the Chinese. So these are the Face app there was the one that was in the news. That was developed by a Russian company that was collecting facial information. The news reports on that are false. It's not just your photos. They were just stating as if the app just collected your photos. It was collecting your files, commandeering your camera and microphone. These news media organizations have no idea how apps work as well. For instance, the WeChat app is granted all of these permissions from Microsoft. So all of this, again, is photographs. All you have to do is go to Microsoft, look up the WeChat app, and then go to permissions and pull up the permissions. Now, does WeChat have all these permissions? They may have some or all. Microsoft is very nebulous. It just simply states that these app developers, their apps are supported by these permissions. And again, this app can vacuum everything off your phone, including your accounts, collect your biometric data, as well as collect information out of your video library. All you have to do is go app permission by app permission all the way down, and it will match that matrix that I made almost verbatim. Which is a scary thing. Why is Microsoft allowing this to happen? I have no idea. Again, I'm not just picking on Microsoft. If you download the DU browser, which is the browser developed by Baidu and it's sold as fun and fast, it'll vacuum everything off your phone and take control of your sensors and cameras. Same thing with the Prisma photo editor app. This is the most popular photo editor app among young people. They love this app. It does all sorts of things that teens and young people like. That app is made by a company out of Russia, and that will pretty much vacuum everything off there. What you're seeing here is what Chinese surveillance technology looks like. I discovered that on this Samsung Galaxy Note phone. This was pre-installed and attached to the 4.2 email app, which I could not turn off because it was grayed out. And I can show it to you on this device after this, but it basically states this: Android.permission Baidu.location services, and it was attached to the 4.2 email app, which isn't Gmail. This is the email app that syncs your Exchange email to the device and your email accounts to the device, and Baidu has nothing to do with email, as far as I know. And it's not a Google product, but it is a Google product because the app was created by Android. So this meant that when I walked out of the T-Mobile store when I bought this, I was being forced to be surveilled by a nation-state company from China. I had actually used this phone before I made this discovery while working for a U.S. defense contractor, Space Data. So a lot of people tell me, hey, mobile device management and security apps and platforms can protect me. No, they can't. And again, the Verizon admission will validate this. They will only protect you through third-party apps that you download. If you look at MDM apps like Knox, which is sold as military-grade cybersecurity, and or IBM's MOS 350, those apps in on themselves are legal malware, enabling Samsung and IBM to collect everything off your smartphone and take control of your sensors and microphones. In IBM's terms of use, whatever information they collect through their security app, they can sell to their third parties. So the security apps themselves are legal malware. When I did the analysis on the Samsung Knox app, there were over 60 app permissions given to that app, just like Facebook. And I found multiple interactive application permission command strings on the security app, including one from Facebook. So this meant that Samsung was enabling Google and Facebook to collect information through the security app. Again, if I don't have a Facebook account, so I had asked questions to Samsung, Google, and T-Mobile. Is Facebook enabled to collect information from users who do not have Facebook accounts? They will not answer my question to this day, even though I paid for the phone and I'm a customer. You have to understand that this isn't like buying a car or a stereo or any other product. For some reason, the FTC doesn't seem to care that when you find something wrong with this and you ask questions to the people that you purchased this from, and they don't answer you, the FTC seems to turn another cheek and don't seem to care, because I filed consumer complaints against these companies through the FTC trying to get my questions answered. But boy, you buy a car with a faulty airbag on it, or you buy another product from another company and there's something wrong with it and they don't address it, the FTC and the state AGs will step in. I also filed complaints with the Texas AG's office about these findings, and they too seem to turn a blind eye to Silicon Valley. They seem to think it's no big deal that a consumer can file a complaint and these companies don't respond. They should have to legally respond. And when they do respond, they give you nebulous answers that have nothing to do with the questions that you're asking. So how I leveraged Verizon into admitting that smartphones aren't private or secure was through the fact that I showed them that it all goes down to the operating systems of the devices. Again, it comes down to the Android OS, Apple iOS, and Microsoft Windows OS. The reason you can't privatize or secure these devices is because the operating systems are built on an open API architecture, which means that anything that's pre-installed and that's programmed, and that's the application programming interface, API, anything that you pre-install that can hook into your contact app, your email app, or hook into your calendar app and so on, can collect information. So again, the MDM apps are going to sit on the top, but they're not rooted at the firmware level, and they will protect you from the apps that you download, but they are not going to protect you from the pre-installed surveillance technology developed by Google, Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Baidu, Facebook, and other companies that partner with these companies. Why is that? Because Google, Apple, and Microsoft charge billions of dollars for these companies to develop pre-installed apps, and that's basically how the industry works. So it's the OS developer that these companies are paying billions of dollars to gain access to you. Again, the conduit to the tech and telecom product user is through the operating system. So I've got a few minutes here. A lot of people wonder if the information collected is being used in a harmful manner. Yes, we're seeing examples of this in news stories. If you were to aggregate the news stories the way they aggregate our data, you would see how much harm is being brought to us. The first example came through Facebook Cambridge Analytica. Now, it wasn't Cambridge Analytica that developed the app that collected your information. It was an app developer that had developed the app, Kogan, and that app went out through the Facebook ecosystem, much like a pre-installed app, and 80 million Facebook users in the US utilized that app. That app, once it collected all that information, Kogan sold it to Cambridge Analytica. And what they do is what the tech companies do. They apply artificial intelligence to the information to pull up your personal preferences, and then they put you into 4 or 5 personality profile buckets, and then they do micro-targeted advertising to each one of those buckets based on your personal preferences. Now, in a consumer environment, that may seem harmless if you're buying tennis shoes, or you're buying a hamburger, or buying a car. But in the case of Facebook Cambridge Analytica, they were manipulating people to vote for a presidential candidate. The use of AI, predictive analytics, and suggestive technology is the 21st century's version of subliminal advertising, but it's much more worse in the fact that I look at this more as mind control. And so they're not just manipulating us to buy consumer products, they're trying to manipulate us to participate in a political arena, which is one way. Again, is your information ending up with data brokers? Again, you won't see this news story on CBS or NBC or ABC or CNN, But last year, AT&T, T-Mobile, Sprint, and Verizon were caught selling your location data from your smartphones to Zamiga and Location Smart. Why was that a big deal? Because they turned around and sold that to state actors and governments, violating your civil liberties. And the information actually ended up in the prison system, and it wasn't until it ended up there that and it was exposed that AT&T, T-Mobile, Sprint, and Verizon turned around and said, okay, we're not going to sell your information to data brokers. Well, they shouldn't have been doing it in the first place. Business competitors, it's ending up in those hands. Employers, I don't know, maybe. State actors, we know that companies like Baidu and Tencent and Prisma Lab are nation-state companies from adversarial countries. Bank and insurance underwriters, law enforcement, political use of the information, we're seeing that as well. Somehow people's text messages get leaked and people lose their jobs, and or we're seeing unearthed tweets from 10 years ago that are blowing up people's careers. Institutions of higher learning, and the list goes on. People, when they say that they can't be harmed, they may not understand that this information is ending up in the hands of these types of entities that can bring inadvertently harm to you that you can never see. Again, with business competitors, Alphabet, Google's parent company, competes in over 200 industries dating back to 2001, yet the FTC, the FCC, and the DOJ enable them to monitor, track, and data mine people by their smartphones, which are supported by protected telecom infrastructure governed by the FCC. This would have been no different than in 1990s AT&T selling your telephone information to your business competitors. I happen to believe it should be, and this is where you're seeing a lot of antitrust, but I happen to believe that if you compete in more than one industry, you shouldn't be able to surveil or data mine anybody by their phone or PC. Of course, you're going to become the most powerful companies in the world when you can surveil and data mine people by their phones and their PCs. Alibaba is the same way. Apple's in over 100, 200. Microsoft is in over 200. Facebook is in over 75 industries. Tencent, Apple's in over 90. The industries range from everything from gaming, entertainment, film, social media, television, technology, comics, publishing, music, e-commerce, and so on. We're seeing these companies offering financial services. A lot of people don't know that Google's in the mortgage business and so forth. Anybody who's utilizing leaky Android products in these industries working for companies that compete against Google are actually leaking their information to business competitors and or companies in China that could be their business competitors on a world stage. So I'm going to touch base on best practices. Best practices, if you're looking to utilize this technology within your business or utilize any new technology, the first place to start is to look at the business practices that support the technology. If the business model behind the technology is surveillance and data mining of the product user, you can't utilize that product in a confidential and protected environment because you're going to be leaking your personal and professional information to unauthorized third parties. The next thing that you can do is private networks and licensed spectrum. For instance, I spoke at an oil and gas conference 2 days ago, and we addressed private LTE networks, radio access networks, and those networks that you can secure. Don't do your business on a commercial network by AT&T, T-Mobile, Verizon, and Sprint because they themselves are in the surveillance and data mining business as well. Device solutions. It used to be you could get a flip phone, a 3G flip phone that was private. Today you can't buy those flip phones. That's why Verizon couldn't sell me a private flip phone because they only sell 4G and above, and all of those flip phone manufacturers have adopted the Android OS, which means that Google's going to get your information from a flip phone, and it doesn't even have to be branded as well. So you have to look out for that. So I went through the flip phones that they were suggesting to me and found none of them were private. Again, you can look at devices that are proprietary and have proprietary OSs for land mobile radio networks if you work in public safety and or critical infrastructure. The first thing that people ask me, okay, you use a smartphone, what do you use? I use Apple. And why? Because I can pre-configure this device I can't stop Apple. I can only mitigate it, but I can reduce it down to the fact that only Apple will collect my information with an Apple iPhone. But even they are an unauthorized third party in a confidential and protected environment. So there's a way you can pre-configure these devices. I don't want to go into too much detail. You can also pre-configure Microsoft laptops and desktop PCs. If you get any PC supported by the Windows 10, do not go for the quick install on that, or when you're configuring it. Don't go for the quick, easy way. Click on customized, and that will allow you to turn off all these app permissions before you utilize the devices. So for instance, when I buy an Apple iPhone, I will buy it, I will take it home, and then I will configure it and then activate it. Once I configure it, only Apple, again, I can reduce it, but I can't stop it. And it's the same thing with a Microsoft, any computer supported by the Windows 8 or 10 operating system. Stay away from BYOD programs, and or if you have one, I would dump it immediately. Again, when you walk out of a store, there's already 15 or more companies that are surveilling you. When your employees are using these devices, there could be 50 or more companies that you're bringing in there. And then last but not least, set up an appointment with your telecom provider, AT&T, Sprint, Verizon, or T-Mobile, and ask them why they're selling us these intrusive products that aren't private or secure. Do an app analysis on any technology that you have. Do an app in terms of use analysis, and then bring your tech providers in. Call Google up, call Apple up, bring representatives into your organizations and get them to answer these questions. I was able to leverage 2 wireless carriers into admitting that smartphones are not private or secure, and I'm only an individual. Imagine what a corporate attorney can do working for a Fortune 500 company. I believe there's multiple lawsuits that are just sitting there because this information, it's your data, it's your company's information, it's your personal information. It's sitting on multiple servers around the world. So that's all I have to say. I'm running a little bit over. I designed a network. This is what cybersecurity looks like in 2019, the unconnected network. I always like to ask, what year is it? 2019. According to Google, it's 1980. Is it 2019 or 1984? According to Google, it's 1984. Eric Schmidt, the former chairman of Google, had this to say: "We know where you're at. We know where you are. We more or less can guess what you're thinking about." So with that said, I'll be happy to, I don't know if I have time for questions, but I'll be happy to answer any questions. Yes, you can go to www.mysmartprivacy.com and download the presentation as well.